Good day, this is Thumbs United. We're editing photography for flotations. As you can see, these are the scans I've been doing since I've been, I'm doing the multitasking streams. While I was playing Halo, I was scanning, and so I finished last night, and these are the results. Each photo is 60 megapixels. So they're extremely high quality. Each file is about 140 megabytes, which is huge for a photo. And then I did a test photo in color, and oh my goodness, that was like fantastic. It was an old negative from like maybe 2001, so it's old. But I scanned in the negative and then edited a little bit, and there was such a wide range of color and everything. But so it's the same megapixels as the black and white, but because it was in color and it had a high bit, not bit rate, but it was like 16-bit color photo. It was like 500 megabytes. So that's half a gigabyte per photo. So, and that's 35 millimeter. So I don't know what's going to happen when I start scanning the color negatives for medium format. It's probably going to be around 110, 120 megapixels. And I'll have to play around with it, because if it's a gigabyte per photo and there are like 60 photos, I mean, that's 60 gigs, so I guess it works out. But it's going to be difficult to edit. But first off, let's get those links in the chat. We have LCD Productions, which shows everything that I do, which has the links to Thumbs United, Facebook pages, and flotations. And then the flotation store, which I'm partway through redesigning. It's not like a big redesign, it's just I'm going through and actually giving names, unique names to each of the photographs. So slowly over time, there's going to be file names and tags. So you can click on a tag and then say it, like if you're looking for nature, you click on the nature tag, and then it will show you like all the photos of nature. And that will also help with searching around for it. And I'm also doing it because I'm hoping that it will help with like SEO, but that's not a main concern. I just want people to be able to search on the website. So that's why I'm going and giving extra categories. Actually, I can show everyone. I'll put a link in the chat. But I put up the 80 millimeter photography. Let me find it. So here's the 80 millimeter from Italy. This is going to be a continuing series. I'm going to be adding more 35 millimeter as I go. I'm kind of working. It's funny because what we're going to be doing is I was working on the past on medium format film with photography from Mexico, but I'm like partway through that. But once I develop the film from Milwaukee, I'm probably going to finish the Milwaukee photography first, and that 35 millimeter film, and that one's in color. So I'm gonna have to it's gonna be I have to develop a new workflow for working with color film, but it's not that big of a deal. So it will probably be the Milwaukee cityscape photos will come next to the 35 millimeter series. No, sorry, 80 millimeter series, medium format series. And then all these photographs are in Lightroom right now. They are the 35 millimeter, and I'll start, creating a series for that as well, because I do have a lot. I have more 35 millimeter film from Milwaukee. I think it's like 180 photographs in 35 millimeter black and white. So that's kind of where we stand. I went through and lightly selected these photographs. I took these photographs when I was 17, and so I was still in high school, and so I kind of removed all the photographs of like friends and stuff. So the remaining photos, they're all photos we're going to use. They're all cityscape or nature, and so we don't have to like select so much, so we can pretty much just start editing. So I'm going to switch over to develop, and what we're going to do is we're going to edit the curves a little bit, but we're mainly going to crop, and then after we finish, we're going to tune up the images, and then it's taking a long time to load because it's a high resolution file. So we're going to crop, we're going to change the and we're just cropping out the extra part the scanner left in. So we're just going to crop a little bit. Whoa. Do. Okay. Loading. So this one needs to be cropped even further. And then after we edit the curves and all that stuff, I want to rotate. There we go. That's my dog's soccer ball. And then this is in downtown Flint. just look at that range. I mean, like, the sun is back there, and there's still like a huge range in the sky, but also in the buildings and the ground. Like, you can't get that with digital. With a single shot with digital, you could do it like if you did a high dynamic range photo, but that's like cheating. What you'd have to do is take like 5 or 6 different photos on a tripod at the same direction, and then you just change the exposure. And then in Photoshop you'd have to combine them all together. So it's possible to get that amount of range from a digital camera, but it's not easy. I mean, like, really not easy. And like, they keep trying to say, oh, same range as film, especially with the cinema cameras. But it's, to be honest, it's like not really close, even with the raw video format. And these photos they've gone back to being in downtown Flint. Somebody's cooking in the house. Just got a whiff of something that smells good. I've been working outside. There was this area, and like, oh my goodness, it was overgrown. I've been focusing mainly on working on like the part of the house that can be seen publicly, but I went back there and I was like, wow, because like it didn't look like this a month ago. So I took the weed whacker and just went crazy with the weed whacker. And so I had to do like multiple not attempts, but multiple I'm trying to think of the right word, not cycles, but I had to do multiple passes where I'd go through and I'd cut everything as low to the ground as possible, and then I'd come blow out all the parts that had been shredded by the weed whacker. Then I would come again with the weed whacker, again cutting everything down as much as I could, and so I did that cycle like 3 times, and then with the lawnmower I came and sucked everything out. And so there's still a little bit of work to do. I am going to go back outside and finish. I mean, it's done. I cleared out that area, but I made a big pile of sticks and stuff, so I have to cut those up into pieces and then bag them. And yeah, and I want to do as much bagging today as possible because I have to put out the lawn bags to get picked up. So it's been pretty productive today. I did wake up late. I mean, not that much late, like half hour after my alarm. But I've just been really tired. I think I took this photo when I was 16. And that's like how old these are. I was doing the math and I've been like taking photos semi-pro, semi-professionally since like, really since 12. So that's almost 16 years. I was like, wow, I'm old. My sisters keep, every time it's my birthday, they're like, you're really old. And I was like, I'm only, like for my youngest sister, we're 6 years apart. But like when I was 25, they're like, "Aren't you worried? You're like half of 50. You're close to 50 now." I was like, "I'm not that close to 50." And I was thinking, how, like I do a lot of work now and everything, but I was like, what am I gonna do for like the rest of my life? Like I would love it to be photography and film, but I was like, what? And it's kind of like I'm saying, I know it sounds like I'm saying, oh, am I going to be doing this for the rest of my life? That's not exactly. It's more like a worry of like already I have so many like photographs shot and like things I want to create into short films and everything. And it's just like, I don't know how I'm going to get through it all, in the next 20, 30 years, if that makes sense, because I want to do additional projects as well. So I'm like, how am I, like I like to I like to complete them, but it's just like I don't know if there's enough time for me to do everything I want in terms of one lifetime. So that's kind of like what I was getting worried. Like I'm close to 30, that's close to 50, and then that's close to like 60, 70. Before you know it, you're 80. And I don't know. Like, will I still be able to use a computer pretty well, or is it going to be like Windows 32 comes out and it's like really difficult to use because I'm used to like Windows 7. I don't know. Okay. So now we're gonna go through, and we don't have to do a lot of any color changes because it's black and white. So mostly what we're gonna do is work with curves. So as you can see, like I make the dark areas brighter. Can make it higher contrast. Make the dark cut off. So, but that's not what we're gonna do. Is we're gonna cut off the dark areas, like that. And I do have to. This is a different way of editing. Because like I can push the image so much more. But I still want to keep like this range of grays. Okay, so that one's done. Bring down the exposure. Like, I could never bring, like, look at how far I brought down the exposure. Like, it looked like this before, and then I'm still able to get all this detail out of the bright lights and the bright whites and everything. You could never do that with digital, even if you were shooting in RAW. There's just so much more options. Now this one we're gonna see. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get. Oh yeah, still getting detail. This is a hard image to do because it's so contrasty, like all this is in shadow and stuff. I like that. And this is just the hood of my mom's car. I was taking a picture of the reflection. And then the windshield wipers. I like it better sideways. So all this is like shadow. Let's see how much we can pull out. See, like, look at that. That was all black. That's how much detail there is. And that is an extreme amount of range. This is like a lot of fun for me, because like with digital you can't push things this far. You don't have a lot of choices once you take the photo. With this we can make it really surreal. So then this is also in downtown Flint. These statues are of like people who created like GMC, General Motors. It's a car company that like most of the American cars are from GMC. So yes, there's Chevrolet, there's Buick, there's Cadillac, but they're kind of all made in the same factories. So like if you buy a Suburban, which is Chevrolet, it's like the same car as the Yukon from GMC, but like the Chevrolet kind of has more like more luxury items. The GMC is more bare bone. But then, like, if you get a Cadillac, like an Escalade, it's still the same as the Suburban and the Yukon, but it's like higher end luxury. And so these are the founders of GMC. And originally, a lot of the factories were in Flint, but then they pulled them out because they wanted to go cheaper into other parts of the U.S. And like there were other factories both in Detroit and in Flint, and like Oldsmobile went out of business, Pontiac went out of business. Pontiac went out of business recently, but they had started closing down all their factories. So once that happened, and this was like in the, I think it was 60s, Flint's economy, because like you could almost certainly get a job very easily working in a factory, and then there was just the factories pulled out, and there was no more jobs. Flint had a huge depression era, and it kind of still hasn't recovered. There's like a few, it just really hasn't recovered. Economically, it's just not doing so well. But they're trying to do a comeback, and it's working pretty well. I mean, downtown is a nice place to go. There's this restaurant, and it's like, so there's this site, it's like right over here, and it's called the Flint Creperie. It's really good. They have gluten-free crepes, and it's all like seasonal food, straight from the farm, and that's where their ingredients come from. And so they're not getting like more hipster, but they're getting more artsy, if that makes sense. Kind of artsy, hipster, not hipster, hippie. And there's like a wide community growing about with like organic foods and straight from the farm. So I am doing a creative stream tonight. I had to start working with this film. I had scanned it all. This is not cropped right. I had scanned all this film and I couldn't wait to edit it. I'm really supposed to be doing web development stuff, but I was like, nah, let's edit some photos. But I'm gonna take like it's 6 p.m. Eastern time. I'm probably gonna stream like another 40 minutes, and then I'll go offline, and then I'm gonna try really hard to start the creative stream at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and then we're gonna go back to working on the Mass Effect 2 the musical. Okay. There we go. And like some of the photos, I don't really have to edit the curves. I can just do it with the tone and everything. But sometimes I go back to using the curves. So we've gone back to downtown Flint. And this ball up here, it lights up and it tells the weather. And so you can see it from like the freeway and everything. And so if it's blue, that means it's gonna get cold. Red means it's gonna get warm. And it has different colors for like if it's gonna snow or rain. So that's pretty cool. It's like a bat signal. I'm noticing that with the city stuff, I'm trying to get like a wider range of things that are in shadow and everything. It's different than editing the forest photography, but like the city work needs a lot more settings changed, if that makes sense. But like as much as I like nature, I think the photos, like these photos in the city are like, they're awesome because you can really see the wider range from film. I mean, like, look at this. It's all black. And, hold on. I had to change the setting on my monitor. I wanted to make sure that it was like as color accurate as possible. And luckily I kept all the settings. Sometimes I changed the color settings. Like if I'm doing a lot of like playing on my Xbox or something, I'll like limit the color range on the monitor, because like you don't need to see a higher range with gaming. It just makes the video games look better, if that makes sense. It takes away like a layer of haze. But then like I said, it's not accurate to what like the colors actually are. So I was just making sure I had put it back in the wide range mode, which is kind of what it's called, but it's not like the HDMI wide color gamut. Like I always leave that on. In the monitor you can choose your black levels, so if you want like a high contrast, low contrast, instead of having to like go through and set, you know, different brightnesses and contrast, you can have presets. And then the other thing that they have a lot of is like Flint's it's a small college town. It has Kettering, which is an engineering and medical school. It's like one of the best in the country. And then it has the University of Michigan Flint. It has Michigan State Nursing School. Well, medical school. They train doctors there as well. It originally opened up as a nursing school. And then they have Mott Community College, which is like it used to be one of the top 10 community colleges in the US, but now they're still in like the top 100, but I don't know where they fall on that list. And then there's Baker's College, which is kind of like a for-profit college, so that's not so great. The people that go there love it, but it's like, it's not, I think it's still like an associate level degree, but you get big bills like you're paying for a bachelor's degree. And then I'm trying to think if there's any more colleges. University of Michigan Flint, Michigan State. Oh, and then there's the Cultural Center, which it's really nice. It's for like kids. It's called the Flint Institute of Music, and there's also the Flint Institute of Art, and they're all kind of within this. It's a great little area. And my dog is angry. She says, I want to go out. But it's a great area, and so with the Flint Institute of Music, it's for kids from like kindergarten all the way up to high school. And like you can go there after high school if you want private lessons. But they have the Flint Youth Symphony, Flint Youth Orchestra, and they're like really good. All three of my sisters played in that, and it's like a big deal. And then they have the ballet classes, and they're advanced ballet classes. Like they learn different things like modern ballet, and like they actually go on point and everything. And so a lot of the people that dance there go on to dance professionally. And again, like I said, it's from like kindergarten to high school. And they do have adult dance classes as well. And then also in the Cultural Center, there's the Whiting, which is it's the theater. And so it's a huge theater, multi-level. And so every year they have the Flint Youth Symphony will come, and they'll put on a performance, and like it fills up, and the music's really good. It's like professional, like a professional orchestra. And then it's like, but they're like kids, you know. And there was something else. Oh, and then the other thing they do is the ballet. will the Flint Youth Ballet group, they will every year around Thanksgiving they'll do the Nutcracker, and they get professional dancers to come to fill some of the roles, but then everything else is done by the Flint students, and it's like really good. And both the Flint Youth Symphony and the Flint Youth Ballet, like the theater gets packed. So those are like really nice performances. And then the Flint Institute of Art is an art museum that also has classes that you can take, and their school is really good. Like these photographs I developed myself there. They had a film class where you go and the teacher teaches you how to process film and everything by hand, and then once you like feel comfortable enough, like the class would be on a Thursday, but then there was open lab, so you could come Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in your own free time for like a long time, like 4 to 5 hours a day. The hours were different, but it was like you could come for 4 hours on Friday, 4 hours on Saturday, and like 3 hours on Sunday. You just develop as much as you want. So I would create prints, I would develop film. I went a little overboard, but it's a lot of fun. So what's nice is you use all the chemicals for developing film, but you don't have to make the chemicals for developing the film, because that is really hard to do. So like when you're making the chemicals to develop the film, like you order the chemicals from Kodak and they come in these pouches of like powder and stuff, and so you have to add water. Well, it's not that easy. It's complicated because you have to add water at the exact right temperature, so it has to be like exactly 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and then you have to put it in, mix it around, and then you have to like add cold water and trying to just balance the color temperature. But once it's mixed at the correct temperature, then you don't have to worry that much. And then other chemicals, again, you have to mix it at the correct temperature, but then you have to like add the powder a little bit at a time. And so I don't like doing that. I mean, I could do it. Like I've helped a teacher do it before, and it turned out alright. But that was weird, that one class, because it was a new teacher, and I kind of had to help show him where everything was. But that's a different story. So we're almost done, and then what we're going to do after this is we're going to go through each photograph and check for dust and other particles from the scanner, and we're going to heal them, and not heal them, but spot heal. And to do that, we're going to open it up in Photoshop. That's the best way to do spot removal. If you only have like 2 or 3 spots that you want to remove, you can do it in Lightroom, but it's better if you have a lot, like you would with a dirty scanner or any scanning. It's better to do it in Photoshop. And then on social media and stuff, I get a lot of questions of like, why do you use Lightroom, when there's Photoshop? And Lightroom is a database program for your photographs, so you can edit, you can organize, and then you can do light editing like I'm doing now. But then in addition to that, you can export like this whole album. You can export it in like HD, the original format and stuff, but you can do it with like 5 to like 1,000 photos. You can even do like 20,000 photos instead of Photoshop, where if you wanted to convert a file, you'd have to do it one file at a time. Lightroom is really the best way to do large number of photographs. And again, like I said, it's a database, so I can go through and rate each photograph. So I can say I want to see all my 5-star, my 4-star, or you can do like which ones you want to flag. So if you're only shooting like 10 or 15 photographs a day, like you don't really need, you can edit them all in Photoshop. It's still not ideal, but if you're shooting like 100 or 400 photos a day, you really need like a database program, and that's what Lightroom is. And Lightroom can handle a lot of forms of raw photography. It's built to process raw photography. It's still from Adobe, and I know these are all the same, but I only have one more to edit, so. And I might like do like an Andy Warhol thing where I have it all exposed differently. So that's why you use Lightroom. But again, if you're making like let's say you have a Patreon and you release like 3 photographs a month, then it's just like, yeah, you don't need Lightroom. But if you're doing like large scale work, then you should use Lightroom. Okay, so I don't understand. Oh, okay. This is fine. And that one's simple. And I know these are kind of photos I already went through. They're not the exact same photos. I took duplicates. So we're just going to see. I know that's a weird curve, but it's working a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to take a short break. I'll be right back. And then we'll start looking for dust and cleaning up the images further. And we're not going to get through all the images with Photoshop, but we are going to, we're like almost done with this project. So I'll be right back and see everyone then. Okay, I'm back. Now comes the fun part. The whole thing was the fun part. But now we go through. Oh man. I thought. Hold on, I'm not comfortable yet. There's a way that I angle my chair, but it's like not working out. Okay. I'm left-handed, so for me to put my hand on the table, I have to kind of tilt the chair the opposite way I sit for typing. Oh my goodness. Okay. I have to change some settings. I haven't plugged in the tablet in a long time. And for whatever reason, it forgets the settings. So I have to tell it, I'm left-handed. It forgot my settings. Really forgot my settings. Okay, hold on. I have to see, I don't know why it does it. It's usually around an update or so. I think it's Windows, it will just wipe out the settings for whatever reason. Okay, so I think, yep. Okay, everything works. So I don't know. We're gonna see how laggy it is. There was a huge update, not a huge update, there was an update that bricked my PC, and so I had to do a lot of I had to fix a lot of the drivers and everything. And okay. The Windows pen is turned on, which is not what I want. So now we can get back to work. So these are 16 megapixels. It's which is a little bit less than what we were doing with medium format. With the Italy collection and the Mexico one. So when I do the medium format for Milwaukee, which is going to be in color, it is going to be higher quality than what we've been doing before. Like I said, it's going to be around 100 to 120 megapixels. It's going to be the same dots per square inch as the 35 millimeter scans, which are these ones. And these ones are, the final megapixel count is like 60. So medium format, I did the math earlier today, it's like 2.26 times larger than 35 millimeter. So that's going to be, it's going to be over 120 megapixels, which isn't that bad. Each file should be around like 1.2 gigs, which sounds like a lot, but there's only going to be 60 images. Like if I took more medium format film in color, then that would be a problem. But I want to test it out as the highest quality I can. I was telling everyone that I was gardening today, and I don't know what happened, but I pulled out my shoulder, and it was just like, before it was like, I think my shoulder feels weird, and I was like, it's nothing. But now, drawing, like I really feel it. So I guess looking for dust or scratches in the film and removing them. I scanned on this film a little bit differently than I used to. When I was scanning all this film, I like actually pulled out latex gloves, like I was a nurse or a doctor. I put them on and then pulled out the film out of the sheet, and then I cleaned each film with a high density cloth, and then I scanned it. So there's a lot less dust than there to remove than I had to remove. But so our work is kind of cut out for us a little bit. I think that just means there's less, post-processing we have to do. Yeah, slowly going across. I think we'll be doing this for another 15 minutes, and then that will be into the stream. And then again, tonight I'm doing a creative stream. We're going to go back to working on Mass Effect the musical. Mass Effect 2, the musical. And we're still working on the second Let's Play edit. But it looks like that edit is going to turn out to be like 3 or 4 episodes of the musical series. And so what I'm doing is I applied a like fast forwarding technique called frame blending to the Let's Play, and then I converted it to being 60 frames per second, instead of 30. So that effect makes it means that the Let's Play is playing at like 4 times the normal speed. And so then in addition to that, we're cutting out like any of the long talking from the cutscenes, or we're cutting out shaky cam, so it's even, the final project's going to be even shorter. So like the episode 1, we were able to cut down from being, I mean the first episode was like an hour and let's see, it went down to 40, so it was 80 minutes, so it was like an hour and it's almost 2 hours, but it was 80 minutes, so it was like an hour and 20 minutes or whatever. Yeah, it was actually an hour and 20 minutes. So sped up, it was cut down to 40 minutes, and then we were able to cut it down even further to be about 20 minutes. So that's what we're editing. And so we're going to fine tune episode 2. And we're going to split episode 2 into several parts. So it looks like we'll be able to split it into like 4 parts, which is nice. And so you can kind of see the film grain, which is like how you know you're scanning at the maximum quality, because you really want to be able to kind of see the grain, because with analog, like with digital, it's very structured, the image, like it is a grid, and it's a grid of pixels, so you know exactly where each pixel is digitally. But what's nice about film is that it's not a grid. It's what's called film grain. And so it's like, imagine it like sand on a piece of paper. And so each piece of sand can be in a totally different place. And the way that film is made, it's uniform. But if you have, and so the film grain is also known as ASA or ISO. And so the smaller the film grain, the lower the ISO number, and that it's measured the same way as ASA. So an image with a film grain of 100 is like very small, very fine film grain. So there's a ton of the grain, which means it's a high quality image. It's like if you took a digital sensor and then you're like, you know what, I want really fine detail, and you put in like, I don't know, a 20 megapixel image sensor. But then you can do, with film, you can do even more incredible things. You can get it to where you get an ISO of 50 or an ISO of 25. And so if you go from an ISO of 100 and then you go to an ISO of 50, that's kind of double the resolution. So that's like taking out the sensor in your digital camera, and instead of it being 20, you make the megapixel like 40 or 50 megapixels. The downside to using lower ISO film, though, is that the smaller the film grain becomes, the less sensitive to light the film becomes. So that means if you're shooting at ISO 100 outside, and you could have an f-stop of 16 and a shutter speed of 125, and that would make a good exposure in outdoor sunny light. But if you're shooting at an ISO of 50, then you'd have to cut that in half. You'd have to shoot at like an f-stop of 8, and then bring down the shutter speed to like 60 or 80, 60 or an eighth of a second. And so it's less sensitive to light, but it is higher quality. So there's advantages to using film that's less sensitive to light, because it forces you to use a lower aperture because you want as much light as possible. So it's really good for portrait work because you can go outside and shoot with the aperture as wide open as possible, and you still have control over the shutter speed. So you can do like an aperture of 1.2, 1.8, and that gives a nice range, nice view of depth. It makes the depth of field really shallow. So like with this flower, like everything behind it is, out of focus, but like the background is actually kind of close to the flower, but because the depth of field is so shallow, everything further than the flower is blurred and out of focus. And so if I had a large depth of field, both the flower and the background would be in focus. And the way you can get a large depth of field is to shoot with a closed aperture. So that means a higher number and higher f-stop. And so like f-stop of 16 or 32, like the whole background would be in focus and the flower would be in focus. But with 35 millimeter, you usually shoot 35 millimeters so you can get the shallow depth of field, and that separates the background from the foreground. And it's really good for like portrait work because it helps you focus in on the person you're taking a picture of, either for like photography purposes, like you're selling a photo of them to them, or if you're doing like glamour photography where you want to separate the model from the background, because the image isn't really about the location, it's about the model. Or if you're doing fashion photography, which is different from glamour photography. Glamour photography is like about the model. You're taking a picture of the model. Fashion photography is you're trying to sell a product. So it's either you're trying to sell the clothes that the model's wearing, or like you're trying to do like a perfume. And so it's not really about the model, it's about the fashion, the product. So that's kind of like the difference between fashion and glamour photography. But in both cases, you're trying to draw your attention specifically to a location, and that works by your eyes will automatically kind of ignore everything that's out of focus and focus on what's clear. And so the depth of field is a way you can guide your viewer's focal point and everything. But going back to the ISO, the lower the ISO, kind of the darker the image is going to be if you don't compensate appropriately. So it's good for outdoor photos because when you're outdoors, there's so much light that even if you shoot at the absolute fastest your shutter speed can go, which is usually around 4,000th of a second, it will still be too bright with a low aperture, like an aperture of 1.2 or 1.8. So it forces you, if you're using ISO 100, you have to use an aperture of like 5.6 or 8 or 16 when you're outside. And you still have a really high shutter speed. But if you're shooting with a low ISO, then the image is automatically darker. So you can still shoot at like a relatively high ISO, but you can shoot with a lower aperture, which lets in more light. And so you can get like this really shallow depth of field in the middle of the day outside Where before, if you wanted to do that, you'd have to use what's called a neutral density filter, and it's like putting sunglasses on your camera. It just makes everything dark, kind of a flat, uniform way. But if you use the lower ISO, like ISO 50 or 25, with film, you get the same effect as the neutral density filter, but you also get a higher resolution image because the film grain is half the size of ISO 100. Now there are other ISO levels. There's ISO 200. There's ISO 400, 800, 1600, 3200, and 6400. And there is higher ones. There's a 128,000 ISO. But the higher you go in ISO, the larger the film grain becomes. And so the higher the ISO, the lower the quality of the image, but the more sensitive it is to light. So if you're shooting night photography on a tripod, you don't necessarily want ISO 100. I mean, you can do that as long as you have a tripod, but if you're doing handheld night photography, you might need, ISO 800 or 1600, depending on how many lights there are. Kind of the rule of thumb for ISO is 400 is good for well-lit indoor photography and cloudy days outside. Sunny days, you want ISO 100 if you're shooting outside. And if it's super bright inside, and then you might be able to get away with ISO 100. But usually with indoor photography, you want 200 to 400 ISO. But yeah, kind of everything after 800 ISO the quality starts to go down a lot. So I almost never shoot above 800 ISO. But if you're buying film and you don't know if you're shooting outdoors or indoors, kind of the best film to get is ISO 400. It's good for indoor light and it's good for outdoor light, and it's still high quality film. Okay. So this was the stream. We restored one image, and we'll be doing this, in my free time. And we'll have the creative stream tonight, probably starting around 9:30. It's gonna start sometime between 9 and 11 p.m. But I'm gonna try real hard to start it at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So I want to thank everyone for coming by. I'll see everyone pretty soon, in a couple of hours. And we'll be editing the Mass Effect the Musical, that series. So thanks for tuning in. See everyone pretty soon. Bye-bye.